Welcome back to the Erin Dungarees Sewalong, supported by Janome. This is the last part of the sew-along. In this video we'll be finishing off our dungarees. If you missed the rest, don't worry, you can catch up at tillyandthebuttons.com/Erin. Throughout the Erin Dungarees Sewalong, I've been using the Janome DKS 100 Special Edition sewing machine and the Janome 6234XL overlocker. If you want to find out more about these fantastic machines, check the description below. Next, you want to try on your dungarees and check that you're happy with the length, bearing in mind that the full length or cropped legs will be 25mm or an inch shorter, and the shorts will be 10mm or 3/8 of an inch shorter once hemmed. If you'd rather they were shorter, you can trim them down. If you'd rather they were longer, you can take a smaller hem allowance instead and make a note to lengthen them the next time you make them. If you're using woven fabric, finish the raw edges of the leg hems with a zigzag stitch or an overlocker like I have here. Press the hems under to the wrong side by 25mm or an inch, if you're making the full length or cropped legs like I am, but 10mm or 3/4 of an inch if you're making the shorts, and then pin in place. Top stitch the hems using a 20mm or 3/4 of an inch seam allowance for the full length or cropped legs, or 7mm or 1/4 of an inch for the shorts. Top stitching just means sewing visible stitches through the layers. If you're using woven fabric, you can use a straight stitch on a regular sewing machine. If you're using knit fabric, you can either use a twin needle or a small zigzag stitch. Try setting it to 2.5 length by 2.5 width. So we're on to the last step, buttonholes. If you're making the buttonhole version, like I'm going to show here, with the 2 straps as opposed to the 4, which are the tie shoulders, we now need to sew the buttonholes to the front yoke. They should be marked on the right sides of the front yoke. If the markings have rubbed off, refer back to the front yoke pattern, folding the edges under 15mm or 5/8 of an inch to account for the seam allowance we've already sewn. We have dedicated tutorials on our blog and YouTube channel for sewing different types of buttonholes, 1-step, 4-step and knit buttonholes. You can find those at tillyandthebuttons.com/Erin. So it's always a good idea to test sew a buttonhole or 2 first on a swatch that replicates your project. So here that would be 2 layers of fabric, one of which is interfaced. The buttonholes should be around 20mm or 3/4 of an inch long to fit the straps through. If you have an automatic buttonhole foot, like this one, you can insert a button that's a little bit smaller than this into the back. Otherwise, get to this length through trial and error. Once you're happy with the length of your buttonhole, it's time to sew them on the front of your dungarees at the markings. If your fabric is a bit on the bulky side, you can use a stitch starter to give the presser foot a helping hand to get started over this edge. Just fold a little scrap of fabric and put it under the back of the presser foot. So let's try sew some buttonholes. With your buttonholes sewn and opened, it's time to give everything a final press. All that's left to do is to show off your gorgeous Erin dungarees. Thank you to our friends at Janome for supporting the Erin Sew-Along. Don't forget to share your dungarees with us over on Instagram using #SewingErin. We can't wait to see what you make. Thank you for watching.